The Machiavellian art of self-mastery. What's the one battle you keep losing day after day that's secretly destroying your chance at greatness? Have you ever wondered why some people seem unstoppable while others, perhaps even you, remain trapped in cycles of mediocrity and unfulfilled potential? The answer might be more brutal than you're prepared to hear. Most of us live under a dangerous illusion. We blame our circumstances, our lack of time, our bad luck, or other people for our failures. But has this ever happened to you? You set ambitious goals, feel motivated for a few days, then watch helplessly as your resolve crumbles when faced with the slightest discomfort. This isn't coincidence. It's a pattern revealing the harsh truth that Machiavelli understood centuries ago. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. The greatest enemy you'll ever face isn't standing across from you. It's staring back at you in the mirror. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely transform how you approach every aspect of your life. The internal war raging within us determines everything. Most men aren't defeated by external forces, but conquered from within, betrayed by their impulses, broken by their emotions, enslaved by their desires and distractions. They've surrendered control before the battle even begins. This isn't just failure, it's submission to your weaker self. But discipline, true discipline, isn't about feeling motivated or waiting until conditions are perfect. That's amateur thinking. Real discipline is about imposing cold, ruthless, relentless control over yourself, regardless of your mood or circumstances. It's about doing what needs to be done, when every fiber of your being screams for comfort and ease. What separates the extraordinary from the ordinary is precisely this ability to act when others hesitate. To master yourself the Machiavellian way, you must become your own prince, your own ruler, your own tyrant. This mindset transformation is radical. You are both the commander and the soldier, both the master and the servant. Self-discipline functions as a whip that drags your weaker self forward despite its protests and resistance. Unlike modern self-help that coddles you with affirmations and gentle nudges, the Machiavellian approach is unflinching in its demands. Think of your mind as a kingdom. Without a strong ruler, it falls into chaos. Without firm boundaries, it surrenders to every passing impulse. Without consistent enforcement, it rebels against your better judgment. This is why so many fail. They attempt to negotiate with weakness rather than dominating it completely. The hunger for self-mastery must become visceral, a burning necessity rather than a casual desire. You must feel it in your blood, the yearning to rise above mediocrity, to become untouchable in your resolve, to stand apart from the masses who remain slaves to their lower nature. If you're serious about mastering self-discipline like a Machiavellian ruler, hit the subscribe button now. Each video delivers tactical strategies to conquer weakness and build unstoppable mental fortitude. The truth that most dare not speak is this: weakness is not to be understood or accommodated. It is to be conquered. The Machiavellian approach rejects all negotiation with your weaker self because negotiation implies equality. But your higher and lower selves are not equals in this internal kingdom. One rules, the other serves. One commands, the other obeys. When that voice inside whispers, "Just this once," or "You can start tomorrow," or "You deserve a break," recognize it for what it truly is: a betrayal from within. These are not suggestions to be considered, but treason to be crushed. The hidden truth that separates the extraordinary from the ordinary is devastatingly simple. Those who cannot force themselves to act will forever kneel to those who can. The world is mercilessly divided between those who impose discipline upon themselves and then upon everyone else. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by revealing what true strength actually is. Society has sold us a dangerous lie about power, that it's expressed through dominance over others or through fleeting moments of passion and motivation. But real strength, the kind that transforms your destiny, isn't found in these bursts of emotion or temporary states of inspiration. The strongest individuals on this journey are those who rise when every fiber of their being screams to stay down. They are those who act when every nerve ending begs for comfort and ease. They are those who move forward precisely when their mind whispers, "Stop." This is strength in its purest form, not the ability to feel powerful, but the ability to act powerfully when you feel your weakest. When you bend your will against resistance until resistance breaks, you experience a profound mindset shift. You stop identifying with your feelings and start identifying with your decisions. Your actions become detached from your moods, and in that space, true power is born. What most fail to understand about this path is its paradoxical nature. On the surface, discipline appears restrictive, a set of chains binding you to uncomfortable routines and denying you immediate pleasures. This misunderstanding keeps millions trapped in mediocrity. The revelation that changes everything is this: discipline doesn't imprison you, it liberates you. With each act of self-mastery, you break the invisible chains of distraction that pull you in 1,000 different directions. You sever the bonds of impulse that make you a slave to every fleeting desire. You cut the strings of emotional reactivity that puppet your behavior. This transformation isn't about adding more constraints to your life. It's about removing the constraints you never realized were there. In this liberation, you discover what few ever truly experience: genuine freedom. Not the shallow freedom of doing whatever you feel like in the moment, but the profound freedom of holding the power to shape yourself and your destiny. You no longer react, you choose. You no longer drift, you direct. You no longer follow, you lead, starting with yourself. Write in the comments, "I am the ruler, not the ruled," if you've decided to take command of your internal kingdom rather than surrendering to the chaos of undisciplined existence. This transformation isn't merely about changing habits, it's about becoming an entirely different entity. When discipline becomes your foundation, you evolve into something most people will never understand: a fortress of iron will. This metaphorical architecture of the self creates boundaries that cannot be breached and a presence that cannot be ignored. You become inevitable in your pursuits, unstoppable in your momentum, and fearless in your approach to challenges that would paralyze others. The journey toward this fortress state reveals a profound revelation that few ever confront. The landscape of your mind is a battlefield, and on this battlefield, the most dangerous adversary isn't waiting outside. The true enemy isn't the critic who doubts you or the competitor who challenges you. These external forces are merely shadows compared to the real threat. Your greatest enemy resides within, that persistent internal voice that has mastered the art of sabotage. It whispers seductive excuses precisely when determination is most needed. It creates elaborate justifications for taking the easy path. It plants seeds of doubt when clarity is essential. This voice is weakness personified, and its singular mission is to maintain the comfortable status quo at all costs. What makes this enemy so formidable is its intimate knowledge of your deepest fears and most secret insecurities. It knows exactly when and how to strike for maximum impact. It knows the precise moment your resolve begins to waver and exploits that vulnerability with surgical precision. This is why most people's transformations fail before they truly begin. They've been ambushed from within by an enemy they never fully acknowledged. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by sharing what may be the most crucial insight on this entire journey. The war against yourself is not a battle with a definitive endpoint. It doesn't conclude with a single decisive victory or a moment of permanent triumph. This internal conflict never ends. Every morning when you open your eyes, the weaker version of yourself rises from yesterday's defeat, regenerated and ready to reclaim control. It returns with fresh excuses, renewed temptations, and more subtle strategies to undermine your progress. The battlefield is reset daily, and yesterday's victory provides no guarantee for today's confrontation. This perpetual nature of the inner war is what breaks most people. They expect the struggle to get easier, for discipline to become effortless after a period of consistent effort. But the hard truth, the reality that separates those who merely attempt greatness from those who achieve it, is that you must kill this weaker self again and again through disciplined action, day after day, without exception. This endless cycle isn't a sign of failure or lack of progress. It's the very mechanism of growth. Each daily victory strengthens your fortress walls. Each confrontation with your weaker self develops your strategic mindset. Each refusal to surrender builds the resilience that becomes your armor against all of life's challenges, both internal and external. Leave a comment with the phrase, "Daily Conquest," if you recognize that this battle must be fought and won anew each morning, and you're committed to this daily practice of overcoming your weaker self. In this battlefield of the mind, one of the most lethal weapons your enemy wields is hesitation. The poison of indecision spreads rapidly through your resolve, weakening your defenses before you even recognize the attack. When that inner voice of weakness whispers, "Let's think about this," or "maybe tomorrow would be better," it's not seeking compromise, it's executing a strategic delay until your commitment falters completely. Subscribe now to join an elite community of disciplined minds. Don't miss a single video on your journey to becoming untouchable through strategic self-mastery. The most crucial moment in any battle for self-mastery isn't the middle or the end. It's the very first second when resistance appears. That momentary pause when you consider negotiating with weakness, when you entertain its excuses or justifications, is precisely when ground is lost. This split second of hesitation creates a breach in your defenses that will only widen with time. The breakthrough revelation that separates the accomplished from the average is this: domination must be immediate and absolute. When the alarm sounds at 5 a.m., you don't debate, you rise. When the workout becomes painful, you don't reconsider, you continue. When distraction beckons, you don't rationalize, you refocus. This immediate action isn't just practical efficiency, it's psychological warfare against your weaker self. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining what happens to those who consistently choose the path of least resistance. History reveals a pattern that most prefer to ignore. Easy men are broken men. They appear intact on the surface, comfortable, perhaps even temporarily content. But beneath this facade lies a fundamental fracture in their character. The uncomfortable truth that society rarely acknowledges is that those who consistently choose comfort over discipline, convenience over challenge, and immediate gratification over delayed fulfillment are destined for historical insignificance. Their names and contributions fade because they never developed the internal architecture necessary to withstand life's inevitable storms. Look at any figure who has achieved lasting impact in business, in art, in leadership, in any domain of human endeavor. Without exception, their journey involved forcing themselves through fire until they became steel. Their transformation wasn't gentle or comfortable. It was forged in resistance, tempered in challenges, and refined through consistent confrontation with their limitations. This reality becomes even more critical when we recognize the landscape of modern existence. We live in an environment deliberately engineered against discipline. The digital revolution has created an unprecedented battlefield where your attention and willpower face constant assault. Every notification, every entertainment option, every convenience isn't neutral. It's a strategic weapon aimed directly at your capacity for self-determination. Each social media app is designed by teams of psychologists to hijack your reward systems. Each streaming service is engineered to keep you passive for maximum consumption. Each delivery service removes another opportunity for productive struggle. The modern world doesn't want disciplined individuals. It wants compliant consumers who respond predictably to stimuli. If you don't consciously fight back against these sophisticated mechanisms of distraction and comfort, you're not merely neutral in this war. You're already conquered, already colonized by forces that profit from your weakness. Your surrender isn't even recognized as such because it feels like freedom, like choice, like convenience. Type "unconquered" in the comments if you recognize these invisible battles being waged for your attention and willpower, and you're committed to fighting back against the forces designed to keep you comfortable, distracted, and ultimately powerless. The path to genuine transformation requires a fundamental shift in how you view your own thoughts. Most people treat their internal dialogue as sacred, something to be respected and honored regardless of its nature. This perspective is precisely what keeps them chained to mediocrity. The revelation that changes everything is this: not all thoughts deserve respect. Some deserve execution. When a thought of laziness crosses your mind, when an urge for needless indulgence appears, when weakness whispers its seductive excuses, these are not just harmless mental events. They are acts of treason against your highest self, rebellions against your potential, betrayals of your deepest aspirations. And treason in any kingdom has always been punishable by death. The mechanism of this execution is immediate action. The moment weakness speaks, you silence it not with contemplation or negotiation, but with the decisive strike of opposed behavior. When laziness suggests you skip your morning routine, you respond by performing it with even greater intensity. When distraction beckons, you respond with even deeper focus. This isn't punishment for its own sake. It's the strategic elimination of internal resistance. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by addressing a fundamental misconception about the nature of discipline itself. The contemporary self-improvement industry has attempted to rebrand discipline as a friendly guide, a gentle companion that nurtures your growth through positive reinforcement. This sanitized vision sells books and courses, but it doesn't create warriors or leaders. The uncomfortable reality is that true discipline functions more like a merciless whip, cutting into your weakness and bleeding it out of you. This metaphor isn't about self-harm or cruelty. It's about the necessary intensity required for genuine transformation. Just as a surgeon's scalpel causes pain to remove disease, the sharp edge of discipline cuts away the weakness that would otherwise consume your potential. This harsh reality explains why so few actually achieve the mastery they claim to seek. The moment discipline begins to sting, they retreat. The moment transformation demands genuine discomfort, they abandon the path. They wanted the results without the process, the crown without the struggle, the throne without the conquest. What the Machiavellian perspective offers is a fundamental recalibration of motivational forces. Most people attempt to love themselves into greatness. They repeat affirmations, seek motivation, and wait for positive emotional states to drive their actions. They believe that feeling good must precede doing good. But history and psychology reveal a different truth. Fear is a far more reliable driver of consistent behavior than love or inspiration. This isn't about self-hatred, it's about clarity regarding human nature. If you cannot cultivate a healthy fear of your own discipline, a Respect for the consequences of failing your standards, you will inevitably face the much harsher fear of regret, mediocrity, and unfulfilled potential. The choice isn't whether to fear, it's what you will fear and when. Drop disciplined fear in the comments if you understand this crucial distinction, that strategic fear of failing your own standards is not negative, but rather the catalyst for the positive transformation that undisciplined love alone could never achieve. This revolutionary approach to self-mastery requires a powerful psychological framework, one that Machiavelli understood centuries before modern psychology caught up. Within you exist two distinct entities engaged in a perpetual power struggle. The first is the ruler, the higher self that envisions greatness, demands excellence, and recognizes your true potential. The second is the subject, the lower self that seeks comfort, craves immediate gratification, and resists difficult change. The revelation that transforms. Your entire journey is this. These two entities cannot coexist as equals. The relationship must be hierarchical, with clear lines of authority established. The ruler commands, the subject obeys. The ruler dictates the path, the subject walks it without question. The ruler sets the standards, the subject meets them without negotiation. This internal monarchy doesn't function through democracy or debate. The ruler doesn't explain or justify his decisions to the subject. He doesn't seek approval or permission for his vision. He simply commands with absolute authority, demanding immediate compliance. This isn't tyranny, it's leadership in its purest form. Just as a ship with two captains sinks, a mind with two equal voices remains forever adrift. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by addressing the most profound misunderstanding about discipline that keeps millions trapped in mediocrity. Most view the discomfort of discipline as something to be avoided, a negative force that diminishes joy and constrains freedom. This fundamental misinterpretation of pain's purpose creates a blueprint for inevitable failure. The transformative insight is that discipline's pain isn't suffering for its own sake. It's power, disguised as pain, strength masked as struggle. Every forced repetition when your body screams to stop, every minute of focused work when distraction beckons, every sacrifice of immediate pleasure for distant goals. These aren't punishments. They are the forging fires that transform ordinary material into something extraordinary and unbreakable. Think of this metamorphosis as similar to what happens to carbon under immense pressure. Without that pressure, that pain, it remains common and forgettable. But under sustained force, it transforms into diamond, the hardest natural substance known to man. This is the alchemical secret of discipline's discomfort. It creates in you a psychological density and resilience that cannot be developed any other way. The wisdom behind this approach reveals the ultimate life choice that everyone must make, whether consciously or unconsciously. Pain isn't optional in the human experience. It's inevitable. The only choice you actually have is which pain you will endure. The regulated, purposeful, growth-inducing pain of discipline now, or the chaotic, meaningless, soul-crushing pain of regret later. The disciplined individual makes this choice with clear-eyed pragmatism. They recognize that the controlled burn of daily discipline, though uncomfortable, creates firebreaks that prevent the uncontrolled wildfire of future regret. They understand that the measured sting of the disciplinary whip today spares them from the unpredictable lash of life's consequences tomorrow. This singular choice determines not just isolated outcomes, but your entire life trajectory. Leave chosen pain in the comments if you understand that suffering isn't optional, only the type of suffering is, and you're making the conscious decision to embrace the productive discomfort of discipline rather than the hollow ache of what could have been. The journey toward true power reveals a paradox that most never grasp. Genuine strength doesn't flow from emotional intensity, but from emotional sovereignty. Power begins precisely where emotion ends, where calculated decision replaces impulsive reaction. Consider the landscape of human behavior. Most move through life as puppets, strings attached to every emotional center, yanked in whatever direction their feelings pull them. Anger appears, they rage. Fear emerges, they retreat. Desire awakens, they chase. This emotional reactivity creates a predictable pattern that makes them easily manipulated, controlled, and ultimately defeated. The disciplined individual cuts these strings entirely. They ascend to what can only be described as the cold throne of control, an elevated position from which they observe their emotions rather than embodying them. From this throne, they rule their internal kingdom with clarity, unclouded by emotional turbulence. This isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about establishing a hierarchy where emotions serve the ruler rather than overthrowing him. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by addressing a critical misconception that derails many on this journey. Self-control is often misinterpreted as emotional numbness, a robotic state where nothing is felt. This fundamental misunderstanding prevents many from embracing the discipline of emotional mastery. They fear losing their humanity, their passion, their ability to experience life's richness. The revelation that transforms this perspective is that true self-control isn't about feeling nothing. It's about mastery over what you feel. You experience the full spectrum of human emotion, the anger, the fear, the desire, the joy. But these experiences don't dictate your responses. You feel rage, but choose when and how to express it. You feel fear, but march forward regardless. You feel desire, but withhold until the timing serves your greater purpose. This mastery creates a profound shift in your decision architecture. Instead of emotions driving behavior, behavior is driven by calculated choice. The emotion becomes information rather than command. This is the essence of self-possession, owning your emotional responses rather than being owned by them. The ultimate manifestation of this control is what can only be described as psychological untouchability. When you master emotional sovereignty, you become virtually impossible to manipulate. The typical levers that control others simply don't work on you. Insults that would provoke others into counterproductive reactions bounce off your armor. Temptations that would compromise others' principles find no purchase in your resolve. Threats that would paralyze others with fear fail to disrupt your momentum. This untouchability isn't merely defensive, it's the foundation of strategic advantage in every domain of life. While others expend energy on emotional reactions, you conserve yours for calculated action. While they reveal their positions through emotional outbursts, you maintain the mystery of your intentions. While they exhaust themselves responding to every stimulus, you choose your battles with precision. In this state of mastery, you dictate the terms of engagement in every interaction. You decide when to advance and when to retreat. You control the pace, the timing, and the battlefield itself. Your opponents bleed themselves out emotionally while you remain composed, calculating, and ultimately victorious. Write "sovereign mind" in the comments if you recognize that true power comes not from emotional intensity but from emotional mastery, the ability to feel everything but be controlled by nothing. The path to this level of control follows a counterintuitive trajectory, one that directly contradicts our comfort-seeking nature. Control isn't cultivated in spaces of ease and accommodation. It isn't born in environments that cater to your every desire. The hidden truth that separates masters from novices is this: control is forged exclusively through deliberate denial and systematic restraint. This alchemy of transformation occurs in the crucible of refusal. Every time you deny an impulse to react emotionally, every time you resist the urge for immediate gratification, every time you override your instinctive response to a trigger, you strengthen the foundation of your throne. These moments of restraint aren't merely exercises in willpower, they are the actual building blocks of psychological sovereignty. The decision architecture behind this process reveals itself in daily moments that most dismiss as insignificant. When you choose the difficult conversation over avoidance, when you select the harder path over convenience, when you embrace discomfort over relief, these micro-choices accumulate into macro power. Each denial reinforces your position as ruler rather than subject of your own kingdom. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining what history consistently reveals about power and its distribution. The world, with all its resources, opportunities, and rewards, has never belonged to the loudest voice in the room. It has never surrendered to the most reckless actor on the stage. It has never bowed to those who explode with uncontrolled force. The world, with its immutable laws of cause and effect, consistently yields to those with precision and control. It rewards the individual who observes silently while others reveal their positions. It favors the one who holds their force in reserve while others exhaust theirs. It ultimately bends to the person who knows exactly when to strike rather than striking at every provocation. This strategic patience represents the apex of self-mastery. The controlled individual doesn't merely abstain from reaction, they transform restraint into tactical advantage. They understand that timing often matters more than force, that precision frequently overcomes raw power. They recognize that the one who explodes may win a moment, but the one who calculates wins the war. The journey doesn't end with isolated acts of discipline or momentary displays of control. These elements are merely the foundation, essential but insufficient. The architectural revelation that completes this fortress of power is consistency. While discipline provides the spark of transformation and control, establishes the throne of command, consistency builds the empire that extends your influence across time and circumstance. Most individuals can summon discipline for a day. They can rise early once when motivated. They can focus intensely for a week when inspired. They can control their emotions during a single challenging encounter. But these isolated performances, while impressive in the moment, create no lasting change in their reality. They remain tactical, victories in a strategic defeat. The Machiavellian approach demands something far more demanding, relentless consistency without exception. This daily commitment to your standards, regardless of mood, circumstance, or external validation, separates the extraordinary from the merely impressive. It transforms discipline from an event into an identity. It elevates control from a technique into a character trait. Write Empire Builder in the comments if you recognize that true power comes not from occasional brilliance, but from unyielding consistency, the daily commitment that transforms sparks of discipline into an empire of achievement. Within this journey lies one of the most profound paradoxes you'll ever encounter. A truth that appears contradictory until experienced firsthand. Those who flee from the weight of consistency, who seek the lightness of sporadic effort and flexible standards, inevitably become prisoners of their own failure. The very freedom they chase by avoiding consistent discipline becomes the chains that bind them to mediocrity and regret. Conversely, those who willingly shoulder the burden of consistency, who embrace the daily grind without exception, discover a form of liberation that the undisciplined mind cannot comprehend. This paradox reveals itself not in theory, but in lived experience. The weight you're willing to carry becomes the wings that allow you to soar. Make no mistake, consistency is indeed a weight. It is a burden that most cannot or will not bear for long. They carry it briefly, feel its heaviness, and set it down at the first opportunity. They tell themselves they'll pick it up again tomorrow, next week, after the holidays. But with each abandonment, their capacity diminishes. With each compromise, their resolve weakens. The temporary relief of dropping this weight becomes the permanent prison of unrealized potential. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by revealing how this consistency manifests in tangible transformation. Picture your life as a fortress under constant construction. Each day that you maintain your standards, each workout completed, each temptation resisted, each difficult task confronted, you add another brick to your walls. The process is slow, often tedious, and frequently invisible to outside observers. There's no applause, no immediate recognition, no dramatic moment of completion. But day after day, brick by brick, your fortress rises. What began as a vulnerable encampment gradually transforms into an impenetrable stronghold. The transformation is so gradual that most never connect the daily discipline to the final result. They look at individuals of extraordinary capability and make a fundamental attribution error, assuming they were born stronger, more talented, more disciplined by nature. The hidden revelation is that strength is built, not bestowed. Behind every overnight success lies years of consistent effort, invisible to the casual observer. Behind every natural talent stands thousands of hours of deliberate practice. Behind every lucky break exists the foundation of preparation meeting opportunity. You weren't born exceptional. You built yourself into someone exceptional through the compound effect of consistent daily choices. This construction project never ends because the materials never run out. Every challenge overcome becomes stronger material for the next level. Every weakness conquered becomes a foundation for greater capability. The Ketafai fortress expands not just in height but in depth, not just in strength but in complexity. The sobering truth behind this transformation is that it happens one day at a time through choices that often feel insignificant in isolation. Greatness isn't achieved through a single heroic battle or momentous decision. It's forged through thousands of small battles fought in silence, without witnesses, without recognition, repeated endlessly until they become identity. Every morning when you open your eyes represents Judgment Day, a moment of decision between regression and advancement, between weakness and power. There is no neutral ground, no maintaining the status quo. You either add a brick to your fortress, or you allow erosion to begin. You either strengthen your empire, or you permit invasion. This daily choice, more than any grand gesture or declaration, determines your trajectory. Drop Daily Builder in the comments if you recognize that consistency isn't just a practice, but an identity. The daily commitment to constructing yourself brick by brick into someone that others will one day call naturally gifted. The evolution of this journey demands an uncomfortable truth that modern self-improvement culture deliberately avoids. Mercy toward weakness is treason against power. This isn't cruel, it's clarity. In the architecture of excellence, every element must serve the structure or be removed. Every component must strengthen the whole or be replaced. In your internal empire, this principle applies with even greater significance. When you show mercy to your weaknesses, when you coddle your laziness, accommodate your distractions, or negotiate with your excuses, you aren't being kind. You're committing treason against your potential. This revolution in thinking transforms how you view your own limitations. Your laziness isn't a quirky personality trait to be accepted. It's an enemy agent infiltrating your empire. Your procrastination isn't a harmless habit. It's a saboteur undermining your foundations. Your excuses aren't reasonable explanations. They're propaganda designed to justify surrender. When viewed through this lens, tolerance of weakness isn't compassion. It's collaboration with the forces working against your highest self. The response to this revelation must be strategic ruthlessness, not the blind rage that destroys indiscriminately, but the calculated precision that eliminates exactly what threatens your advancement. This distinction represents the watershed moment in your development, the difference between destructive impulse and constructive elimination. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by clarifying the nature of this ruthlessness. The image most conjure when hearing this term involves emotional intensity, chaotic force, or indiscriminate destruction. This misunderstanding renders their attempts at self-improvement ineffective or even counterproductive. True ruthlessness operates not through heat, but through cold calculation, not through emotional outbursts, but through strategic assessment. The surgeon removing cancer doesn't rage against the diseased tissue. The strategist eliminating a threat doesn't act from hatred. The commander securing territory doesn't move from anger. All operate from a place of calculated necessity, identifying precisely what must be removed and executing that removal with clinical precision, without emotion clouding judgment or hesitation compromising action. This surgical approach applies directly to your internal landscape. When your phone becomes a distraction, you don't smash it in frustration. You implement systems that limit its interference. When comfort undermines your discipline, you don't rage against comfort. You systematically reduce it in strategic areas. When certain relationships drain your energy or undermine your standards, you don't attack them emotionally. You diplomatically but firmly recalibrate their place in your life. The mastery of this approach comes not just from its implementation, but from its direction. Ruthlessness without targeting becomes chaos. It destroys indiscriminately, including what should be preserved. Your strategic precision must be aimed with absolute clarity at what truly matters. Like a blade, it must be sharpened only for specific purposes and wielded only against specific targets. This targeting represents another evolutionary leap in your approach. You learn to cut down weakness without cutting down strengths. You learn to eliminate distractions without eliminating necessary rest. You learn to silence excuses without silencing constructive feedback. This discernment transforms ruthlessness from a blunt instrument into a surgical tool, from a liability into an asset. The blueprint of this strategic approach reveals itself in daily decisions. When laziness appears, you don't negotiate. You immediately counter with action. When distraction beckons, you don't entertain. You immediately redirect. Focus. When excuses arise, you don't justify. You immediately replace with solutions. This immediate response system doesn't allow weakness to establish a foothold in your mental territory. Type strategic precision in the comments. If you understand that true self-mastery comes not from unfocused force, but from calculated, targeted action that eliminates exactly what undermines your progress, no more, no less. The manifestation of this strategic approach extends beyond individual actions into the architecture of your entire mental landscape. A kingdom without walls inevitably falls to invasion. An empire without fortifications cannot maintain its borders. In the same way, a mind without deliberate barriers will always be conquered by external forces. This is why the next evolution in your journey demands the construction of what can only be described as a fortress of the mind. Unlike physical fortifications, this mental stronghold isn't built through concrete and steel, but through consistent psychological practices. Each time you silence a negative thought rather than entertaining it, you lay a stone. Each time you resist an external temptation rather than yielding to it, you build a wall. Each time you enforce your standards rather than compromising them, you strengthen your gate. Slowly but inevitably, this fortress rises, cold, tall, and ultimately unconquerable. The revelation that transforms this construction project is that fortresses require sacrifice. You must be willing to cut away softness, to reject unnecessary comfort, to embrace strategic solitude. This requirement explains why most never complete their mental fortifications. They aren't willing to sacrifice what feels good for what builds strength. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by addressing one of the most overlooked aspects of mental fortification, the strategic mastery of silence. The modern landscape reveals a pattern that separates the weak from the strong. Weak individuals cannot tolerate silence. They cannot bear their own thoughts. They cannot endure unstructured time with themselves. This intolerance for silence drives them to fill every moment with noise, distraction, and stimulation. They scroll mindlessly through feeds, keep background noise constant, engage in meaningless conversation, anything to avoid confronting the silence where true self-knowledge emerges. This avoidance creates a fundamental vulnerability in their mental architecture. By fearing silence, they never develop the capacity to distinguish between thoughts that strengthen and thoughts that weaken. The disciplined individual takes the opposite approach. They don't flee from silence, they master it. They don't fear solitude, they harness it. They gradually transform silence from an enemy to be avoided into an ally to be cultivated. Within this silence, they develop the discernment to decide which thoughts deserve entry into their fortress and which must remain outside the walls. This mastery of silence creates another evolutionary advantage, the development of what Machiavelli understood as the shadow of power. Beyond your actions, beyond your words, beyond even your accomplishments, lies something more subtle, but equally important: the perception of what you're capable of. This perception isn't just reputation or image. It's a palpable energy that precedes you, follows you, and surrounds you in every interaction. This shadow grows not from what you say, but from what you consistently do, especially when no one is watching. It expands not through declarations of strength, but through demonstrations of discipline. It deepens not through demanding respect, but through embodying self-respect. The disciplined individual carries this presence without effort because it emerges naturally from their internal reality. Consider the historical figures who changed the course of events through their mere presence. Did they need to shout to command attention? Did they need to threaten to inspire compliance? Their silence carried more weight than the noise of 1,000 ordinary individuals. Leave Shadow Builder in the comments if you recognize that your discipline isn't just changing your actions, but creating an invisible force field of perceived capability that others sense even before you speak or act. The cultivation of this shadow reveals another principle that contradicts modern impulses. Strategic mystery creates power. In an age of oversharing and constant revelation, the disciplined individual practices deliberate restraint in what they reveal. Weak men expose everything: their emotions, their desires, their fears, their plans. They seek validation through transparency, confessing every thought and feeling as if unburdening themselves creates strength rather than vulnerability. The strong reveal nothing without strategic purpose. They understand that mystery isn't deception, it's power concentrated. When people cannot easily categorize you, when they cannot predict your next move, when they cannot manipulate your known weaknesses, they project their own fears and respect onto the canvas of your silence. What they imagine about your capabilities will always be more powerful than what you explicitly state. Your restraint creates a vacuum that others fill with their own assumptions of your strength. Think of the difference between the person who declares, "I am dangerous," versus the one who simply maintains composed silence in the face of challenge. The first undermines himself through desperate assertion. The second allows the imagination of others to build his reputation. This principle extends beyond interpersonal dynamics into every domain of life. Let your accomplishments speak while you remain measured in your words. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the ultimate destination of this journey, what can only be described as the crown of mastery. Every empire seeks a symbol of absolute authority, a representation of complete dominion. For you, that crown isn't external validation, accolades, or material rewards. It is the complete and ruthless dominion over yourself, the state where the war within reaches its culmination. This crown represents a profound transformation in the nature of discipline itself. What begins as forced action gradually evolves into instinctive response. What starts as deliberate control eventually transforms into effortless habit. What initially requires conscious consistency ultimately becomes unconscious rhythm. The crown of mastery is placed upon your head when discipline no longer feels like discipline. It simply feels like who you are. The revelation that separates masters from practitioners is that most never reach this state because they stop at effort. They remain forever in the phase of struggle, never pushing through to the other side where struggle dissolves into natural expression. They mistake the training ground for the battlefield, the preparation for the performance. And so they live halfway, always climbing, never arriving at the summit where effort transforms into essence. This mastery manifests as a quality that others perceive immediately but cannot easily name: inevitability. The master becomes inevitable in their movements, their decisions, their impact. They no longer need to summon willpower for actions that once required tremendous effort. Discipline flows through them like breath, automatic, essential, and unconscious. While others debate whether they feel like doing what must be done, the master simply does it without internal negotiation. This state creates a profound competitive advantage in every domain of life. While others stumble through hesitation and second-guessing, the master moves with precision and clarity. While others exhaust themselves through internal resistance, the master conserves energy through frictionless action. While others collapse under pressure due to unfamiliar discomfort, the master remains composed because discomfort has become their natural habitat. Type "crowned" in the comments if you recognize this ultimate stage of transformation, where discipline is no longer something you do, but something you are, where control is no longer a battle, but simply your default state of existence. The journey to mastery reveals a paradox that initially appears contradictory, but contains profound wisdom. You can only reach ultimate freedom by first enslaving yourself to discipline. This seeming contradiction dissolves when experienced rather than merely contemplated. Consider the trajectory of transformation. In the beginning, discipline feels like imprisonment. You force yourself to rise before dawn. You compel yourself to continue when exhaustion sets in. You mandate focus when distraction beckons. These chains of obligation feel restrictive, uncomfortable, even painful. Yet a mysterious alchemy occurs through consistent application. What begins as forced suffering gradually transforms into something entirely different. The chains you resented become the wings that elevate you. The restrictions you fought against become the foundation of your liberation. This metamorphosis represents one of the most profound revelations in human potential. What appeared to be imprisonment becomes the very mechanism of your freedom. Think of a master pianist. For years, they endure the constraint of practice, the limitation of scales, the restriction of technical exercises. These chains seem to imprison their creativity and expression, yet through this voluntary confinement, their fingers eventually move without conscious direction. The initial restriction creates ultimate freedom, the ability to express anything imaginable through their instrument with effortless precision. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by addressing a critical misunderstanding about the nature of mastery itself. Many believe that mastery, once achieved, becomes permanent, a crown placed upon your head once and kept forever. This fundamental misperception leads to countless falls from greatness, as individuals who reach heights of discipline suddenly find themselves tumbling back to mediocrity. The crown of mastery isn't granted through permanent ceremony, but through temporary appointment. It must be polished daily through consistent practice. It must be defended hourly against the constant siege of temptation and distraction. One moment of carelessness, one day of surrender, one week of compromise, and the crown slips from your head, not completely lost perhaps, but requiring renewed effort to reclaim. This necessity for vigilance explains why true masters never rest on their accomplishments or believe themselves beyond the need for continuous refinement. They understand that mastery isn't a destination, but a dynamic state requiring constant maintenance and evolution. The moment you believe yourself finished with the work of mastery is precisely when decline begins. Despite this demanding requirement for maintenance, the rewards of wearing this crown transform your entire experience of reality. When you achieve mastery over yourself, life responds differently to your presence. Opportunities that remained hidden to others suddenly appear visible to you. Doors that stayed firmly closed against the mediocre swing open at your approach. Resources that seemed scarce become mysteriously abundant in your hands. This shift occurs not through mystical forces, but through practical mechanisms. The world naturally bends toward those who have first bent themselves to discipline. People instinctively sense your reliability and extend trust accordingly. Organizations recognize your capacity and offer responsibility proportionally. Even circumstances seem to align differently, not because reality changes, but because your perception and response to reality have fundamentally transformed. Leave self-bent in the comments if you recognize this profound truth, that the world responds not to what you want or what you deserve, but to what you have become through the persistent bending of yourself to the demands of discipline. You've reached this point in our conversation not by accident, but by choice, a series of micro-decisions that reveal something profound about who you're becoming. This journey we've walked together isn't merely philosophical theory or motivational rhetoric. It's the blueprint for a transformation that few will ever complete, but that changes everything for those who do. The question now isn't whether you understand these principles. I can see by your presence here that you do. The question is whether you'll join the ranks of those who implement, rather than those who merely contemplate. The crown of mastery awaits not the knowledgeable, but the dedicated, those who transform information into action without delay or excuse. If something within you resonated with these truths, if you felt that mixture of discomfort and recognition that signals genuine revelation, then our paths were meant to cross. This message found you because you're ready for it, not because you wanted to hear it. There's a critical difference. The community we're building here isn't for everyone. It's for those serious about the ruthless pursuit of self-mastery, individuals who understand that discipline isn't just a practice, but a way of being. If that's you, make yourself known. Type "Discipline is destiny" in the comments below. This simple act isn't just participation, it's declaration. It marks your commitment to this path of transformation. If you found value in these insights, support this mission with a like on this video. Not as validation for me, but as a signal to others that this content matters, that these principles deserve attention in a world drowning in mediocrity and comfort. And if you're truly committed to this journey, subscribe to continue walking this path together. Each video builds Upon these foundations, creating a comprehensive system for those serious about becoming untouchable through self-mastery. Before you go, there's a video right here that explores the practical applications of these principles in daily decision-making. Click and continue with me over there. The work has only just begun, and the next level awaits those willing to pursue it. Remember, in a world of compromise and comfort, the disciplined individual doesn't just survive, they dominate.